of labor can save so much of PPH and hence patients going into DIC. If you just remember the active management of third stage of labor. APH is not much in our hands, but now let's move on to our next lecture. Thank you, Aparna, for enlightening us on DIC. Now I welcome my most hardworking and a very dynamic secretary, Dr. Deepti now, and she'll be talking on rational use of blood transfusion. When to give, how to give, what is the time duration, and what do we expect out from blood transfusion? Dr. Deepti, please start sharing your screen.
Ji, ma'am. So, good evening, friends.
Please mute yourself, all of you, please mute yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My topic today is rational use of blood. As per definition, rational is in accordance with reason or logic. So that is use the right product in the right dose, in the right time, for the right patient by giving only what is precisely needed. Red cells, if it is the oxygen carrying capacity you want to improve, platelets for thrombocytopenia, FFP for multiple clotting factor deficiency, and cryo for factor 8 and 13 deficiency. What are the aims of blood transfusion? It is to restore or maintain the blood volume for effective tissue perfusion and increase the oxygen carrying capacity, also to replace platelets, coagulation factors, and other plasma proteins by providing the most appropriate blood product for the patient. Theoretically, one could say that 1 unit of blood gives you 1 unit of FFP, 1 unit of PRBC, and 1 random donor unit platelet. The aims of my presentation today is a brief overview of the general principles of blood transfusion, what are the various components of blood, reducing the need for blood transfusion, the awareness of risks of blood transfusion and problems which are specific to pregnancy. What are the principles of clinical transfusion? First and foremost, avoid blood transfusion as far as possible. By using alternatives, we have crystalloids, stringolactate, we have colloids, Hemaxil, we have EPO, and we have desmopressin. And please keep in mind that transfusion is not the management. It is only a part. We need to deal with the reason which led to the need for transfusion. And please never ever decide a transfusion solely on a decreased hemoglobin levels. As an obstetrician, you have to be very aggressive in the early prevention, diagnosis and treatment of anemia in pregnancy. When you know there are certain situations where there is going to be blood loss, a good anesthetic and a surgical management is very important. Take a consent before transfusion, record the reason of transfusion, a trained person to monitor transfusion. The prescription should be based on national guidelines, and most of all, transfusion should be prescribed only if the benefits to the patient outweigh the risks. So what are the various blood components? From whole blood, you get red blood cells. From red blood cells, you can get washed RBCs. These are where the particulate matters have been removed, and so decreases the incidence of transfusion reaction and also the probability of transmitting infections. Frozen RBCs are in very rare phenotypes where RBCs can be stored up to 40 years. Filtered red blood cells are where there is leukodepletion, reduces the volume overload. From platelet-rich plasma, you get plasma and you get platelet concentrates. From plasma, further divided into fresh frozen plasma, from where you get cryoprecipitate. From frozen plasma, further fractionation into plasma protein fraction, albumin, gamma globulins, intravenous immunoglobulins, special gamma globin products, lyophilase factor 8, and other clotting factor derivatives. So coming to the various components, we have whole blood. Comes in a pack of about 350 cc, stored at 2 to 6 degrees centigrades. It must be Rh-ABO compatible and usually indicated in neonatal exchange transfusion. PRBC comes again in a pack of 300 cc, stored at 2 degrees centigrade, mainly used for increasing the hemoglobin and oxygen carrying capacity. We know very well that 1 unit of PRBC in an average built adult who is not bleeding or who is not hemolyzing will increase by 1 gram hemoglobin or increase by 3% in the hematocrit. Fresh frozen plasma is stored at 18 degrees centigrades, comes in a pack of 250 cc. It can be stored for up to a year, but has to be thawed before use, and it should be ABO compatible. This is the dose already mentioned by Dr. Aparna. Cryoprecipitate comes in a pack of 15 cc, does not require group matching. Again, the dose already mentioned. Now, something very interesting about platelet concentrate. In an emergency, if you are using Rh positive platelets for an Rh negative patient, then Rh immunoglobulins should be administered. Again, the dose of platelet, And as far as FFP and cryoprecipitate are concerned, if you are giving RHD negative women, RHD positive FFP or cryoprecipitate, it does not require anti-D prophylaxis. So, are there any benefits of blood components? Yes, certainly. It allows transfusion of only specific blood components required by the patient. It avoids the use of unnecessary components which could be contraindicated, and several patients can be treated with the blood from only one donor. What are the various transfusion triggers? For RBCs, hemoglobin more than 10, certainly a big no. Less than 6, yes, transfuse. When it is between 6 to 10, you need to consider, is there any indication of organ ischemia? What is the rate and magnitude of bleeding? What is the patient's intravascular volume status? Risk of complication due to inadequate oxygenation? Keeping these things in mind, only then you take a decision for transfusion of PRBC. What is the transfusion trigger for platelets? Up to 5,000, recommendation is always a big yes. From 5 to 10, if there is minor bleeding or fever. 11 to 20, if there is coagulopathy or you're planning a minor procedure. If more than 20,000, you're planning an invasive procedure and there is a major bleed. If more than 50, then you depend upon the clinical situation, you may or may not give platelets. For FFP, PT and APTT should be 1.5 times the upper limit. For cryoprecipitate, fibrinogen less than 100, and the patient is bleeding or you're planning a surgery. Keeping all these things in mind, it is very important that we must know the time duration of transfusion. For PRBC and whole blood, as I mentioned, we have to store them at 2 to 6 degrees centigrade. They should be transfused within 30 minutes of removing from the fridge and complete the transfusion within 4 hours. It is important that we discard the unit if this period is exceeded. For the rest of the components, platelet concentrate, FFP and cryoprecipitate, start the transfusion as soon as you get the packs from the bank and complete the transfusion within 30 minutes of starting the transfusion. The transfusion rates, they depend upon the clinical circumstances. On an average, may vary from 3 to 5 milliliter per kg per hour, can be increased if the patient is in hypovolemic shock. And again, I would reiterate, if the unit of blood has been out of the bank for more than 30 minutes and not transfused, it should be sent back to the lab. Now, how do you reduce the need for transfusion? And as obstetrician, we have to be very passionate, very aggressive for treatment of pregnancy anemia. Optimization of hemoglobin in the antenatal period. Consider anemia if in any trimester hemoglobin is less than 11 grams. Do not wait for it to be 8 or 9. Counsel the patient for diet, start oral iron therapy. If there is a doubt regarding her compliance or if there is GI irritation, do consider seriously parenteral iron therapy. We know there are a lot many situations in obstetrics where there is going to be blood loss, vaginal delivery, C-sections, there is going to be blood loss. So there are protocols, certain guidelines, and active management of third stage of labor is one of them. Rubbing up of the fundus, bimanual uterine compression, control cord traction, and most of all, oxytocin at the birth of the anterior shoulders are some guidelines, some protocols will reduce the need for blood transfusion. In 2021, question of home delivery does not arise. Every delivery should be an institutional delivery. Now, there are certain problems which are very specific to a pregnant patient, as already highlighted by Dr. Aparna. The physiological changes, there is hemodilation, there is increase in the plasma volume by 50%, increase in the RBCs by 20%. There is gestational thrombocytopenia. There is a hypercoagulated state and which tips the patient towards DIC. There is extreme difficulty in assessment of blood loss by visual assessment. A large amount of blood is concealed in the uterine cavity and the doctor can be unaware. And if she waits for the deterioration of vital signs of blood pressure and pulse, 50% of the damage has already been done. In addition, there are associated comorbid conditions. There is risk to the fetus. So all these things have to be kept in mind. So there are specific situations in pregnancy where there is an increased need for blood transfusion, as in anemia of pregnancy, certain hemoglobinopathies, obstetric hemorrhage, and surgeries where significant blood loss is expected. For pregnancy anemia, the indications for transfusion are slightly different. If the hemoglobin is less than 6, and there are less than 4 weeks for delivery, yes. If the hemoglobin is less than 7 and the patient is in labor or in the immediate postpartum and she is bleeding or she is prone to bleed due to some medical condition, then again a big yes. If the hemoglobin is 7 but she is bleeding and there is risk of further hemorrhage or she presents with severe symptoms that need immediate correction, like in cardiac decomposition, again, it is a big yes. As far as hemoglobinopathies are concerned, transfuse if the hemoglobin is less than 8 in patients with thalassemia minor. Obstetric hemorrhage is another chapter by itself, which should be dealt separately. However, we are all aware of the mechanical strategies, pharmacological strategies, resuscitation with crystalloids, appropriate blood components, etc. Certain surgeries where we certainly expect significant blood loss, like in a patient with placenta previa, there is always a risk of emergency transfusion. So what do? You send at least once a week samples for blood grouping and cross-matching. Keep informing the blood bank that yes, you will be needing blood in an emergency as and when required. ABO and RH compatible and cytomegalovirus seronegative cells and platelet components should be provided for elective transfusion in pregnancy. Certain ways of reducing blood transfusion need. Intraoperative cell salvage. This is blood loss which is during surgery is recovered and it is infused back into the patient. It needs special medical devices, has been tried and tested in several obstetric surgeries. And in a RH negative patient in a C-section, she has to be given anti-D and up to the tune of 1,500 units vis-a-vis the routine 300 units if the cord blood group is RH positive. Autologous transfusion, another way of reducing the need for blood transfusion. It is donation of blood by the intended recipient. So 1 to 2 units of blood are withdrawn from the patient before surgery, replaced with crystalloids. This blood is stored at room temperature in the OR, so eliminating the need for formally collecting, testing, and storing blood. It reduces the possibility of transfusion reactions and of infectious disease in addition, but it is not recommended in pregnancy. Massive blood loss, already covered by Dr. Aparna. In one line, I would say it is defined as loss of blood at the rate of more than 150 ml per minute. Massive blood transfusion, again, it has been dealt very beautifully. In one word, I would say when more than 4 units of PRBCs are required in 1 hour, and you see that further need is foreseeable, then MBT comes into action. Goals of management already been mentioned by Dr. Aparna. Now, dilution coagulopathy, again, as she has said that when multiple units of PRBC and crystalloids or colloids are used, component replacement is a must. And the recommended ratio of PRBC, plasma and platelets in case of massive hemorrhage is 1:1:1. Now, comes the most interesting and the end of my presentation, administration of blood and blood product protocols. So now you as a obstetrician, you've taken a call that yes, she needs a transfusion. You've decided which particular component she needs and how much of it she needs. So how do you go about it? So you need to fill up a blood request form. This I've downloaded from the Red Cross Society website. Certain points which I've highlighted, which were pointed out to me by my mentor, Dr. Sharda ma'am. How do you send the blood sample? 5 ml of the patient's blood is sent in a plain sterile test tube. Please note, there is no anticoagulant. There are certain specifications of the test tube, 12x100. It has to be properly labeled with a stopper. The attendants who go for collecting the blood pack have to be told to carry a thermocol container to bring the blood pack back. And also, something very interesting already mentioned, that blood will be issued after testing and it takes approximately 3 hours. So when you need blood in an emergency, you have to keep this in mind. It takes 3 hours for the whole thing to be processed. You have to be very careful when you fill up the form. This blood is to be needed in routine or in emergency. So whether there is an urgent need that is immediately within less than an hour's time, a definite, that is you're planning a surgery day after tomorrow and you asked for blood, which will be kept in the fridge in your nursing home, or there is a possible need, like it is a negative patient and you're planning a C-section and hemoglobin is 10. Nevertheless, you would tell to book 2 or 1 PRBC. Then you need to mention about which particular blood unit you need, whether it is whole blood, packed cells, FFP, anemia, plasma, platelet count, etc. Now, certain interesting points I came across while reading the literature. Label the sample tube clearly and accurately at the patient's bedside at the time the blood sample is being taken and not before obtaining the specimen, which is usually being done by our nurses. It creates chaos. It creates blunders. If the patient has had a recent transfusion more than 24 hours earlier, send fresh samples of blood for compatibility testing because antibodies to the donor RBCs may have already developed. Samples for type and screen and for type and cross matchings are very important. These are done at the first time of antenatal booking and repeated when you think that you might be needing blood in emergency. Keep in mind the sample should be less than 3 days old. We know very well that we need to use a blood transfusion set. It has an integral 170-200 micron filter. It is always changed 12 hourly during a blood component transfusion. In warm climate, changed after every 4 transfusions. Now you sent in the form, you have got the blood pack. Do you start the transfusion immediately? No. Please have a look at the blood pack very carefully. Are there any leaks? Squeeze the pack and check for it. Look at the color of the plasma. Is it pink? Are there any clots in it? Is there any evidence of hemolysis? Look at the red cells. Are they normal? Are they black or purple? Look for hemolysis on the line between the red cells and plasma. Do not administer the transfusion if the blood pack appears abnormal or it is damaged, or again, it is out of the refrigerator for more than 30 minutes. Send the pack back. Inform the blood bank immediately. Now, you've done the checking. It is all okay. You transfuse the patient. Monitoring is the most important part. How do you monitor? It is to be done before you start the transfusion, as soon as the transfusion is started, 50 minutes after starting transfusion, because most of the reactions commonly occur during the first 15 minutes of a transfusion, and all patients, particularly unconscious patients, should be monitored during this period and for the first 15 minutes of each subsequent unit. There is a very beautiful form which is for documentation of transfusion, where it is mentioned that pulse, BP, temperature, respiration, color of urine, input-output chart, time of transfusion, the rate, and when you complete, it is given pre-transfusion, 15 minutes, 30 minutes till the end, and even 4 hours after the transfusion is over. Some other important facts which I came along. Now you've all ordered for 2 PRBCs. They're lying in the fridge. Overnight, the patient attendants had got them. You start the C-section in the morning at 8 o'clock. Then it is asked you, Madam, blood mangwaya hai? Yes, doctor. Lagwa dijiyega. Sorry, this pack is still in the fridge. So how do you manage? Do you put it in a bowl of hot water? No. There are blood warmers, but then not everyone is lucky to have them. So you have big blankets to wrap up these blood packs, and then they can be used. Do you use pre-medication? Do you use Efcorlin? Do you use Avil or any other medication? A big no. Do you add any medicine or other fluids with the blood or components? Again, a big no. So the transfusion has started. You should be aware of the transfusion reactions: acute, which occur within 24 hours of starting the transfusion, or delayed, which occur 24 hours later. What are these reactions? They could be acute, mild, where there is just localized urticaria, itching or rash, or it could be moderate, when in addition to itching and rashes, there is fever, mild tachycardia, palpitation, mild respiratory distress, or a headache. It could be severe. There is a fall in BP, there is a rise of heart rate by 20%, there is unexplained bleeding, there is hemoglobinuria, there is respiratory distress or chest pain. What are the causes? It could be TRALI, that is transfusion-associated acute lung injury. It could be a fluid overload. It could be septic shock. And it could be even acute intravascular hemolysis. You need to be aware of all these adverse reactions. And friends, whenever an acute reaction starts, first things, please check the blood pack levels and the patient's identity for any discrepancy. How do you manage them? If it is category 1, she starts complaining, you get a call, patient ko itching ho raha hai at the transfusion site. Slow the transfusion. Then give her antihistaminic, chlorpheniramine. Observe her, wait. If there is no improvement or if the signs and symptoms worse, treat her as category 2. In that case, stop the transfusion. Notify the doctor who is responsible for the patient and the blood bank. Send the blood unit, the entire blood unit with the infusion set to the bank. Collect fresh samples of urine and blood from the vein opposite to the infusion site, 1 tube clotted and 1 with anticoagulant. Then give her antihistaminics, antipyretics, corticosteroids, bronchodilators. Collect urine in the next 24 hours. If there is a clinical improvement, restart transfusion slowly, but with the new blood unit, and observe carefully. However, if there is no clinical improvement within 15 minutes, or if she starts worsening, treat her as category 3. What do you do then? You've already stopped the transfusion. Start NS, start high flow oxygen, adrenaline, corticosteroids, bronchodilators if there is an anaphylactic reaction. Diuretics, notify the blood bank, fill in the form for investigations, send blood and urine samples immediately and 24 hours later, start input-output charting, assess for bleeding from puncture sites, reassess if there is hypertension, start ionotropes. If the urine output is falling or there is evidence of acute renal failure, you may even have to consider renal dialysis. These are some of the drugs which should be on the patient's bedside table when you start the transfusion. Saline, paracetamol, chlorpheniramine, adrenaline, salbutamol, dopamine, furosemide. Please do not run around looking for these drugs. They should be there. Some of the delayed reactions which occur 24 hours later, it could be delayed hemolytic reaction, post-transfusion purpura occurring 10 to 15 days later, graft-versus-host disease or iron overload. Again, something very interesting I came across, late reactions. We are aware of infections being transmitted by transfusion, HIV, hepatitis B and C, syphilis, CMV, malaria, etc. Now, since
Dr. Deepti, you have to close.
Ji, ma'am, 2 minutes.
We must be very clear that we talk very specific, which we can retain. We will
Yes,
talk
ma'am.
this particular thing. I think you need to sum up.
Yes, ma'am. So delayed transfusion reactions have to be kept in mind when these kind of, as a part of a differential diagnosis. Again, there is a form from the blood bank, which you fill in when there are any transfusion reactions. And this is from where I got my literature. Remember, friends, it is a balance between benefit and need when you ask for transfusion. Thank you.
I think super. But I think तीन presentation एक में मिलाए गए हैं. That's the only comment of mine. ठीक है, ma'am?
जी,
I think
ma'am.
we might need to relax and we go to a third topic, which is going to relax you completely because premenstrual tension nobody likes. And this is Dr. Jyoti Bhaskar.